Today's video is all about organizing and storing your raw materials in perfumery. So when you just begin, this isn't really something that you run into too much as a problem, because if you've only got, say, 20 ingredients, you can lay them out all on your desk and just get them when you need them. But when you get to something like 50 or 100 raw materials, suddenly it can start to get confusing because you've got this sea of bottles everywhere and you don't know where something is when you need to use it. This video is going to be split into two parts. So firstly, I'm going to talk about how I organize materials on my immediate workstation. So that's just kind of the palette of materials I want to be working with at the moment. And then later I'm going to be talking about how do I store the rest of my materials, the bulk of them, in a way that keeps the materials safe and also allows me to easily find them. Right then, so first let's talk about my desk. Now, when I first started, the first thing that kind of annoyed me was the fact that I would have bottles one in front of the other, and that meant I wouldn't actually be able to see if something was behind what it actually was. So I thought it would be good to have like a kind of tiered system where you've got one bottle is above another, and that way you can see all of them going back. Now I thought there might be some perfumery racks for this that you could buy, but I had a look around and it's quite a niche thing, so they don't really make them. But what I did find as an alternative was I was looking around on Amazon and I actually found a nail varnish rack, and I thought that that could be quite a good solution. So I got some of these, and what they basically are plastic sheets, and you have to kind of screw them all together and then you can construct them into this thing. I'll put a link in the description, so if you're interested in looking at these, then you can go and have a look at them yourself. Now, the good thing about these is they're really not too expensive, and they've also got quite a lot of storage space. So this one here has got 6 different tiers, and yeah, you can put all of your bottles on it. So for a while I was using these nail varnish racks, and I still think these are a decent solution if you're looking for something and can't find anything else. However, I did start to have some problems with them. So firstly is the fact that these actually scratch really easily, and if you spill any raw materials on them, they can eat into the plastic quite easily, which means it's really hard to kind of keep them looking nice and clean. And I guess the plastic itself does start to look a bit tacky, so it looks alright, it just doesn't look amazing. And the second thing was, these are very wide, which means there's actually more space in here probably than the size of your bottles. Obviously it depends which bottles you use. Because, however, most of the bottles I use are quite tall and thin, I would put these in and there was nothing to stop them falling over. So literally you just pick up the rack to move it, and this is something I would do quite a lot because I would want to move between rooms with my materials, and it's annoying to kind of hold all the bottles in your hands, and all these bottles would just fall over. So that was something that I wanted to change. And the other thing was, obviously you can line them up nicely, but there's nothing to kind of keep them arranged so easily in a way that you want them to. So then, after using these racks, I thought of another idea, which was actually getting my own racks custom made. So I went and made a design for a rack that I thought would be good and got like a prototype made. And I ended up with basically this, which I think looks a lot nicer. So these custom racks really started to solve a lot more problems for me. One of the problems in the nail varnish rack was all of the bottles didn't have a certain place that they could just slot into. But in these custom racks, every bottle has its own hole. So it's actually got like a place which stops it sliding around. And this keeps, firstly, all the bottles looking neat, which keeps them looking nice and smart on your desk. But also it gives everything a defined slot. So you can always put it in the same slot, and then you always know where to reach for it, and it's never going to get messed up. And I think that's really nice. The next thing about these racks is, because of those defined slots for all the bottles, it also means when you pick the rack up and move it, all the bottles don't fall over anymore. This means you can actually take this rack to another room. So say you've got all of your blends you're doing, and then the whole air smells of your perfume aroma chemicals or your essential oils. Then you can just go into the kitchen and you can bring all the blends with you, which is a nice kind of fresh air environment. And then you can just go and smell everything in there. And as soon as you're done, you just put it all back on the rack and carry it back into the other room. Now, the final thing that I designed into these racks to help me was making sure they were always 3 levels deep. The reason for this was because I often have my dilutions at 3 different levels, which are 10%, 1% and 0.1% to store my raw materials, because this makes it much easier to know how to blend them and which levels might be best to blend them at. If you have 3 deep, therefore, in the perfumery rack, what you can do if you want to is you can have one of the dilutions in front, one in the middle, and one in the back. So you could have, for example, 10% in the front, 1% behind it, and 0.1% behind that. That means kind of one column or one row, depending on which way you look at it, of the rack is all just for one ingredient. So this means if you've got a load of these racks on shelves, which is something that I have in my office, then you can just go along to the right shelf location to find the raw material. Then you just go back the right amount to get the dilution you want, and that means you can find the ingredient you want straight away, which is, I think, really nice. So these perfumery racks are available on my web store. I've got a link in the description. I think they're a pretty good budget-friendly option, so check out the link and see if they work for you. Now, while I do still like my design, in order to make it quite budget-friendly, one thing I had to do was keep it all in one flat layer. And that meant I lost the tiering system, so the bottles behind were no longer higher up than the bottles in front. So a while back, one of my subscribers actually got in contact with me and suggested that maybe we could do some kind of collaboration. Now, he is a woodworker in Germany, so he makes lots of really, really nice, high quality, handmade wooden products. So then I thought this would be a really good idea to kind of try out this perfumery rack, or this kind of ultimate perfumery rack concept that I'd come up with. So we got together and we came up with some designs, and what we basically made were these perfumery racks that you can see behind you. Now, I think these racks look amazing. They are made of solid oak wood, so when you lift them up, they've got that really weighty kind of feel to them, and they're hand finished with linseed oil, so they look really, really nice on the surface finish. Anyway, what we've basically done is put holes in the different tiers, so just like in the other custom racks, each bottle has its own defined slot to go into. So again, that helps with just keeping everything organized, and also means that things are less likely to fall over when you pick up the rack and you move it around. What I really like about this rack, again, is that tiered layering system, so you can see all of the bottles behind and the bottles in front. I think it looks really good when you have these racks together, kind of like a real perfumer's organ. I don't know if you've ever seen actual perfumers, but they normally have these perfumery organs, they're called, which are basically these layers and layers of bottles at the back of their desk kind of wrapped around them. And with these racks, it's starting to get something a bit like that, which I think is really, really cool. Anyway, so if you are interested in some of these racks yourself, you can now actually find them on his online store. As part of the collaboration, we split some of the profits, which means we can both use those to help grow our own businesses. And what you get for it is a really nice perfumery rack. I think it makes a really good centerpiece. So something you might have, for example, in your living room, say you have guests around and you've got it on like a bookcase or on your table. I think it's a really nice kind of way to display your raw materials, but it's also good in your office just as your main kind of workstation place for using your raw materials there as well. The other thing is, because these are all handmade to order, this means that there's a lot of options available for customization. So you can have something like laser engraving. So say you have your own perfume brand, your own business, and you want to have your own logo on it, you can have laser engraving. You can also get custom hole sizes for your bottles and even custom dimensions. So say you need one that's a lot bigger, then you can also get that done as well. Right then, so the other thing I wanted to talk about in this video was how do you store the bulk of your materials themselves. So maybe not just the things you have out on your desk, but also the rest of your collection and everything in general. Okay, so firstly, I want to talk about actually protecting the raw materials themselves. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't actually know is light can break down your raw materials. Now, this is something that's quite important because obviously that means you kind of want to protect your materials from light where possible. When you actually look at sample bottles, one thing you notice is that they do come in different colors. For example, this one's green and this one is amber. They also come quite often in clear or kind of a completely see-through color. Now, the green color or the amber both help protect against sunlight, especially the amber is probably the most used one. These colors effectively act a bit like sunglasses for your raw materials, which help them last a bit longer. On the other hand, if you've got a clear bottle, there's nothing to stop the rays getting in. So depending on what your material is, if it's susceptible to breaking down, then it's going to break down more quickly in a clear bottle. So just a quick tip, if you're looking to get some sample bottles, I would always recommend you buy amber bottles if you can. Now the next tip is the other main thing that can break down materials is heat. So this is especially important if you're living somewhere that's quite hot and your materials are getting stored in somewhere that's quite hot. But mostly it really depends on the material itself. Now, one class of materials in particular that are susceptible to breaking down are the citrus oils, so things like lemon oil and orange oil. So I would actually suggest you put citrus materials in the fridge to keep them lasting longer, in the same way that the fridge will help food last longer. Basically, what happens is when you put it in the fridge, it gets colder, which means all of the reactions that would be breaking down the material, or all the degradation reactions, are happening at a slower rate. So this just means that your materials are going to stay for longer, which means you're going to have to replace them less frequently, which is obviously a good thing. Now, you could obviously do this for all your raw materials, which would be great if you could, but for most things it's a bit overkill, and I would say it's only a few very delicate things like the citrus oils that really need to be stored in the fridge. Also, I have a dedicated fridge for this, but if you're using the same fridge as your food, you wouldn't really want to have the whole air inside the fridge smelling of perfume chemicals, so again, for that reason, I would probably stick to just a couple of citrus oils. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was actually storing the bulk of your materials. What I used to do was I would put them all out on shelves, but the one thing about this was it obviously took ages to go and find them when I needed to. Now, the other problem I had with that was having so many materials on shelves. That means some of the vapors obviously escape out of the bottles into your room. It's unavoidable to have the tiniest amount of vapor slipping out of the bottle. But if you've got that going for loads and loads and loads of bottles, that means the amount of kind of perfume lingering in your room at all times can get to be a bit much. Now, I'm very sensitive to this, so it gave me a bit of a scratchy throat. So what I had to do was come up with a better option, firstly for organizing the materials, but also kind of storing them. Now, what I eventually came up with was putting them all in a plastic box. What I found were these specific boxes, which are made for A4 paper, are actually the perfect height to fit the bottles in. Now, I did used to have some cardboard boxes, but these didn't work so well because the cardboard is still a bit permeable to the vapors. However, the plastic does a really good job at forming a protective barrier to keep everything inside the box. Okay, so now I've got everything in the box. Well, the next problem you've got to deal with is how do you actually find the materials you want, because now you're only staring down at the lids, so it's even longer to go and find the ones you need. The solution that I came up with was to basically take these small round stickers and write the initials of the material on the top. So for example, raspberry ketone, I would write RK. And then I would also get a pen in the color of what I thought the material smelled like to help me. So in the case of raspberry ketone, I would put it as pink to be like raspberries. Or say it was L for lemon, then I would put it in yellow. So now if you look inside the box that I've made, you can see this one is split up. So we've got naturals on one side and synthetics on the other. And because of all these initials on top, it's really quick just to find something I want. So I can see here, this is EM2B, so that's ethyl 2-methylbutyrate. And I pull it out and there we go, it's here at 1%. If I wanted to find the 10%, then I just go and look for the other one in here, and here it is, and there you go. So I really like this method of organizing the raw materials just because not only does it help you find everything and organize stuff, but it also keeps your workspace odor-free, which I think is a really important thing. Anyway then, so that is all I've got on this subject. I hope you guys found something in this video that was useful. I know I spent a lot of time kind of coming up with all of these solutions when I was starting out. If I'd had someone like this just to tell me the best ways to do things, it would have saved me a lot of time and also money buying different things to test them out and then realizing that maybe it wasn't the best way to do it. So yeah, I really hope that these things can help you and you can find a good solution for yourself. Again, if you're interested in any of the perfumery racks which I was showing that were custom made, then do check out on my website and in the links in the description, and you'll be able to look at them for yourself and see if there's something that could work for you. Anyway, that said, thanks for watching the video. I really do appreciate all the support I've been getting from you guys. If you don't already, please like the video and comment because it does help me out and it helps the channel grow, which of course helps give me motivation to make more videos. That's pretty much it from me though, so have a lovely rest of your day and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.